Morning YouTubers, Two-Wheel Rider here on a sunny day down in Worthing. And yes, it's not a spoiler alert, is it? Because we're on the BSA GOLDSTAR. You can see the title. But first things first, big shout out to Alf's of Worthing, the Kawasaki dealer, who are also the BSA dealer, and have supplied this bike for me today. I am going to go quiet in a minute because there's something I want you to hear, which I was in two minds to show you, but I think it's important that you get a full view of this bike and see what's going on, because this bike has given me a bit of confusion to put this video together, but you'll see why, and I'll let you hear this first before I do anything else. So I'll let you hold that thought. So yes, it did cut out not long after I got it up the road. Now, being aware of that issue, which I have been because I've watched other YouTube reviews of this bike, it wasn't a shock to me. I could compute what was going on, and it started up straight away. But it's obviously a bit of an issue that's been going on since this bike was first introduced, and this is a new bike, and it will still do that. So you'd think they would have resolved that, but be that as it may, it was important to give you an honest look at the bike, and that did happen. But anyway, we will do what we normally do with the bikes at the moment, of my review sort of style. So we'll have a look around the bike, have a chat about it, go out on the road. I'm doing my 20 to 40 again, 40 to 60 rather, speed testing, and stuff like that. And I'll give you my views around the bike as I ride it and look at it. I am out of area today, so I had to sort of make the area where I did the walk around a bit on the hoof. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the bike. Right, so here we are, everybody. Finally, with the BSA GOLDSTAR. So this is pretty new. This is only done about 40 odd miles. Big thanks to Alf's at Worthing for this, and I'll put a link up to their site. But I've been wanting to get on one of these for a long time, and I don't think I'm disappointed. I think I had a few preconceived ideas what this was going to be like, but let me just throw my glasses away. I don't know, it's not quite as I remember it. I first saw this bike in, I think it was 2022 or 21. That was at the NEC when they brought some of the bikes over for everybody to ogle at, and caused a huge stir, didn't it? And I must admit, I sort of remember the grips being chunkier and this being a little bit, the bars being thicker, but you know, time has altered that. But certainly when you sit on it, it still feels like a really nice package. I'm not going to say it's a prestige product, because I don't think it is. And BSA historically were never a prestige brand. You know, they sold a lot of utilitarian bikes. But one thing I did notice, so and this comes out in a lot of my videos, how I like to have a lot of bike in front of me. I do see that with this. Let's get rid of my gloves as well. Is that you got the headlight and the binnacles are quite a way off. Not dissimilar actually to my Bonneville. One of the nicest things on this bike is the clocks, and it's really nice that they've got them in the reverse, which they do with lots of other bikes, don't they? They don't do with other bikes, so you've got the reverse. I sort of seem to remember these being bigger, or you know, when you sort of think of, you've seen it and you remember it slightly differently, but I always thought these were bigger. Quite nice that when you turn it on, obviously you've got the they go up and they're slightly out of sync, but and you've got your warning light indicators here, and a side stand light, which is good. Don't see that on any bikes. Doing a side stand, proper fuel gauge, which is great. You've got your odometer and bits and pieces. So this is now done 63 miles. So also I'm being careful with the engine on this. But that's not, that feels premium. That all feels really premium. The bit it doesn't seem quite so premium, well, you got two USB. You got a standard USB and USB-C, which is great for charging your phones, etc. I think they've altered that. I think that used to be a little bit. Was there red on there before? It just seems to be a bit stuck out there for no reason. It's sort of, I know it's sort of slightly matching the reservoir for the brake fluid, so I suppose it sort of matches up a little bit, doesn't it? But it just seems like a bit of a lump, that where it could have been probably quite nicely tucked away down in here somewhere. And the switchgear feels quite nice, actually. I would say it's probably slightly nicer than the Enfield. In fact, I think it's quite a bit nicer than the Enfield. This is a little bit, looks a bit more rugged, and it's nicely finished. It's got a nice finish to it, so I like that. The engine looks nice. It's nice shape to the engine, and what's really cool about this is that it's not really fitted to anything else. And I think that was really important to give it that distinction, really, and that separation from other bikes. Nice big radiator, because we have got a water-cooled engine, and obviously this is a water-cooled single 650. Again, who else is doing that? I certainly don't know anybody else is making a water-cooled 650. Again, it distinguishes it from all the other bikes in this sort of field, doesn't it, really? So let's go and have a play with this engine as I negotiate this roundabout, and try not to be run over by a lady who's very intent on coming onto the roundabout. But if I am just taught me nothing, is to be very conscious of hazards coming up. Just going back to the that stalling issue, the bike did only stall the once, and I had no other issues with it after that. It may very well be that the engine was cold, and I think there are some software updates that you can plug into this engine and get the engine management sorted for that. But anyway, that was that. Take that as you wish. From an engine point of view, and I'll be doing my 40 to 60 in a few seconds. I found the engine actually really nice, incredibly torquey, and for a single, the vibration was negligible, and of no worry to me whatsoever. But I'll do my 40 to 60 and I'll show you what that was like. And I'm doing this in top for this bit, which is fifth. Now I'm shaking my head at this point, because I'm thinking, well, that engine's got some torque. And I had to do it again just to make sure that I wasn't in the wrong gear. Yeah, that's torquey, very torquey. We'll go back and have a look at the fit and finish and carry on from there. That engine, impressive. So let's have a look at some of these bits in a bit more detail then, and what I think about the sort of fit and finish. That's sort of quite obvious. The metal finish on there, I don't think that's a paint finish. I think that's sort of the metal underneath. It's not the greatest in it. I don't know if can you pick that out. And a little bit down here as well. It's a bit rumpled. Not sure what that is. Be interested to see some of the other bikes and see what they look. That almost looks like you've had corrosion under there, then it's been painted over the corrosion. It sort of reminds me of my old GT 550 that I had. I'll see if I can put a picture up of that, the work I did on that. But generally, the actual fit and finish is really nice. We've got the piled arms here, anybody knows that, because BSA didn't stop making firearms once the bike side of the business died. They continue to make firearms, and they still do. They certainly continue to make air weapons, although BSA, the air weapon side of it now, is owned by Gamma, which is a Spanish company. Mirrors are great. I can see past my shoulders on there, no problem at all. Seat's comfy. Yeah, had no problem with the gear stick. Like I did if you remember my revised review of the Triumph 400, you know that I had a little bit of issue with the gear stick being chewy. I think it's slightly odd. Is that odd? You've got a 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter there. Is that so you can have a fag on the way round? I'm not too sure. A little bit bizarre. What do people think about that? Does that make any sense? You'd almost think, well, why didn't you put the USB down there possibly? Although you want the USB on the handles really, I suppose, yeah, but not sure
how useful that is. It gives you another charging place, really, I suppose. But I like all this. This is not. I like the BSA. I like it in black. These are transfer. They're not painted on. But I think it just looks nice.
So back out on the bike then. One of the reasons why I like to do my narration after the event means that I can reflect on what I've thought about the bike and really make sure that, you know, my comments are accurate to what's happened and how I've ridden the bike and how it's felt to me. And this bike, where normally it's fairly straightforward for me to do that, this bike, I found it really quite difficult, and I've chewed over my thoughts on this bike after riding it. Certainly as far as the engine goes, I think the engine's great. It really does pull fantastic, you know, single pot 650, incredible. And that 40 to 60, which I'm going to do another couple of here, was amazing. It really pulled along, absolutely really surprising. Suspension wise, it is quite soft at the back, and I tended to find, and I've noticed this when I've watched other videos, that it tends to hunker down at the back when you're going around bends. That extra bit of force that you apply when you're going around a bend to suspension, the rear is a little bit soft probably, but it's actually quite, it's not unpleasant, but you can feel it. But the thing with this bike that sort of struck me most was what my preconceived ideas were about it, in as much as I thought, after watching reviews and that, thinking, well, this is a prestige bike, or more prestige bike, say, than Enfield, you know, quality nearly pretty much as good as Triumph, and I didn't feel that. I think that's a bit pretty way off the mark, to be honest with you. And what I mean by that is that, you know, this bike is, you can see it floating between £6,500, and it is a £6,500 bike. It's not an £8,500 bike or a £10,500 bike being offered to you for £6,500. And I think that's what you really have got to accept with this bike. I think it's fair to say that no one's giving you something for nothing here. You're not, you know, pulling one over on the bike manufacturer. You know, it is a £6,500 bike, and I think it's no more than that. That's probably going to upset an awful lot of people in it. I hope not. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there. You know, it's good value at £6,500. I think more than that, I don't think it would be. There's some beautiful touches on this bike with the badging. You get the proper Brembos and stuff like that, which is fantastic. But I think some of those things, you know, always you're going to regret and you can say something. I think some of the really cool parts of this bike is slightly superficial. The quality is slightly superficial, and it's making it look a better bike than it is. Even though it is a good bike, and I really enjoyed riding it, and I think it looks fantastic. I'd like to know what other people think about this bike, because I think people should get out and ride it. I think it's a great base for a customisation. I think you could, and I've seen some of the customised GOLDSTAR, they look phenomenal, and I'd love to ride some of those and see how the upgrades that people have done have affected the way the bike rides. I think if you buy it, I think the big bonus of the bike, and I mentioned it a bit later, is the weight of it. It doesn't carry its weight. Or you don't feel the weight of this bike. It carries it much better than the Triumphs and the Enfields. Really, really light. It might now be coming across why I was so confused about this bike, and it was having that preconceived idea about it where I wish I hadn't actually sat on it before now, and I just got to ride it as it is and take it in complete isolation, which I like to do. You know, I like to do it. So yeah, it sort of sounds as if I'm having a down on this bike, but I found it quite confusing and a difficult bike to review, if that makes any sense at all. I think if I was to have a bike like this, it would be, you know, something that I would try and customize and have for, you know, high days and a nice ride out, because it's comfortable. The engine is phenomenal, but I wouldn't choose it just as over any other bikes that I've got. I think it's a very different bike, and it stands well on its own. But it's not a bike that I would put my money out at, really, not at the moment. And I know there's obviously some other bikes in the pipeline. Alps did say they think there's a 350 in the pipeline, so I'm going to be very intrigued to see what that is and what they badge it up as. You sort of think it's going to be a Bantam, but you never know, really. But let's head back to looking at the bike, and we'll take it from there.
It looks the part, doesn't it? They've worked out what were the key features on the GOLDSTAR originally, and then thought, right, well, that, you know it from a distance. If you're, 100 yards away, you'll know it's a BSA, and it's probably a GOLDSTAR. And that's the clever trick, isn't it, really? Because we are in that situation where this GOLDSTAR doesn't really have any links to the past apart from the name. The people that are manufacturing it have no links to that. It's a little bit like, BMW buying the Mini and then producing it, but we still know what it is. We accept that as part of the process, as part of business. And I think they've done a nice job in respecting the history of the GOLDSTAR by producing this. And remember, this is not an expensive bike. They sort of $6,500. You can see them, floating around that sort of money. And it's a bike where you can pay that sort of money and do a few bits to it. Just a little bit of titivation on there. I've seen, I was just watching a video actually on YouTube with, you can buy a different binnacle positioner. Is that a real word? Which brings the clocks higher up, which I think would actually be really, really nice. And I know I think it's £180, I think, or something or other, but it is all billet alley and it's been machined and milled out, so it is actually a quality piece of kit. And when you're doing it for such a small production run, it's going to be expensive. It's probably one guy on a machine milling them out. But I like that idea, and it brings the clocks up to about here, which is good. And I've seen it with the drop bars, which makes the bike look really, really cool. So the actual height of the bike, then, I can flat foot this, no problem. It's very similar to my Bonneville, actually, height-wise. Yeah. And it's got that sort of that reach to it. I wouldn't compare this to the Bonneville. I think the Bonneville is a different sort of vehicle. It's a more premium product, the Bonneville, and I don't think it matters. When you're comparing 6,500 to 10,500, there is going to be a difference in the quality. It's not just the name. So, yeah, it's nice, but everything falls into place well, and it's a more upright position. When we're looking at the Interceptor, this is a more upright position than the Interceptor to ride in. I do like the Interceptor and its slightly more aggressive stance, so this is slightly more upright, but that's fine. I've never ridden the original GOLDSTAR, so I don't know whether that, but this is, you can see this being used as a commuter, but also as a really nice weekend ride, because that engine is pretty fast. It's pretty responsive. It's far more responsive than the Interceptor. I would say it's more responsive than the Bonneville, actually. Whether that's a trait of it being a single, that you're putting all your eggs in one basket and giving it everything it's got. But blimey, the 40 to 60 test was quite shocking, actually. How quickly that responded and picked up. Yeah, I was quite taken aback by that. But it's not heavy to lift. Some bikes are heavy to lift off the stand. This isn't. Moving it around, it's easier than the Interceptor, I'd say. Probably about the same as my Bonneville. So no great difference there. You'd have to forgive. I'm somewhere where we've now got people turning up and there's somebody cutting grass. So there'll be some obviously chat on the order of the ride round, but I hope you like this little chat about the BSA GOLDSTAR. I do like it, actually. I do like it. I don't think I changed my Interceptor for it. I think, strangely, the Interceptor feels more of a robust bike. It feels really solid. This doesn't feel quite as solid as the Interceptor. But then it's only, you know, I've only had this for a short time, so difficult to really judge, and I think that would change as you use it for a bit longer. But I'm going to head back, take it back to Alf's, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video, kids. Take care and ride safe. Right, ride safe, everyone.